Welcome to Class 1. Welcome. Have all of you raise your right hand. No, you really don't have to. Promise you'll never get inactive again or even not stay up. It's so fun to keep learning, and if you keep learning, you'll never lose it again if you've lost it. Some just wanted to refresh, and that's a good thing, too. Well, it's a good thing you're here anyway, whether you're refreshing or what you're doing. Today, it was kind of a reminder of the very first lesson, and that's details, that we read directions carefully and details. And but I think Americans are real fast with that, or don't read directions as well. So this was a good beginning to realize we think we know what the end says and we quit reading. So that's the first lesson. So what I want to do is dive right into some stuff, medications actually. Toward the end of the 3 hours, then we'll do some of the questions you've asked. Kind of the schedule and clinical stuff. And as I told you on the phone, most of you, I want to discuss clinical one-to-one because some people want it for giving mission trips and giving flu shots, and that's great to be legal. Some really need to go full-time work. So your clinical and satisfying you might be different from the next person. So clinical is kind of what you and I decide. And I don't care what you do clinically. I'll give you some things. It's you that need to decide it's enough. I got to have more. And it's you that needs to. I'm not going to tell you, now I think you've really got to have some more. That's up to you and your comfort. And if you think this isn't enough, you need to tell me, and we need to do some more clinically. So that's why I do one-to-one. None of you all had the man call me, did you? Well, you wouldn't tell it now if you did. But some man, I kept dealing with him. And I said, this is a little awkward because I kind of like to talk with the person who's doing this course while I'm representing her. And he called back a couple of times and wanted to know really what clinical was about. And I said, why don't you have her call me? And if she really wants to know, and if any of y'all had pushed me, I would do it, but it's just because everybody's so different. So, I want you to turn, now what we'll refer to is the briefs, or one of these handouts, and the other is the agenda. So when I say agenda, I want you to pick this one up. Briefs, pick that one up. So I want you to go to the agenda and go to page, we're going to start medications. So I want you to go to page 12. And let me just say, if we're going to go over, we don't do drugs all day today because it just gets real laborious going over drugs. We do it a little today. We do it, sometimes it takes 3 or 4 sessions of a little bit of drugs, just so you don't get so worn out with it and tune out. So we're going to start, but what I want to say is if you know some tidbit about a drug that I didn't say, share it. Because I try to stay up on stuff, but it's hard to stay up on everything. So the 10 most prescribed drugs, this is how old? 14, so it's 4 years old. I've looked them up recently, and I probably ought to put some different pages in, but you can do just what I do, go to Google and see. But they're pretty much the same for 4 years, these drugs. And you notice, just glancing at them, and this, one reason I start with drugs is it's such a big part of our profession, but also you realize you hadn't lost as much as you think you have. You'll remember a lot of these drugs. And what's so great now, the good part of technology, is that I'll show you on the floor, you just touch a button now and there's the drug. And you don't have to, does anybody see the PDR? Where, did he have it? Blah, blah, blah. Now it's just boom, and there's the drug. So it's just so wonderful. And I probably don't even need to do a refresher on drugs, but I think it is kind of good, gets the wheels going. So you notice Synthroid, the most prescribed drug in America. Isn't that something? And then there's the cholesterol cutting, and Nexium. Nexium's so popular, but I think it has some real issues about it. What do they say? What is the latest thing they're saying about it? Do you remember?
Kidney disease.
Kidneys, and I knew there was something else, and there's something else there now I'm wondering about.
They're saying liver. Yeah.
Yes, that's it. And I have a friend who's just lived on it. Well, she's a performer, and she cannot keep a vocal performer, she cannot keep an irritated vocal area. So she has to keep it down, but she has gone to a completely different diet, and she says she's so much better than being on Nexium. But the diet isn't fun.
No.
No. So, are you familiar with it?
A friend of mine just recently went through a lot of this.
Oh, it's,
her diet was
yeah, it's terrible. So there it is, though. They love it. The little purple pill, they call it, don't they? Ventolin, just asthma. And the Advair discus, again, breathing, pulmonary disease. Cymbalta, antidepressant. And then Diovan, blood pressure. Vinase, attention deficit. And then Lantus and Lyrica. And if you have free time, you could go and see the most prescribed last year. I hadn't done it this year to see, but I remember a year ago, I think I did it, and they were very similar. But it does see where Americans are. The Synthroid is fascinating, isn't it? That is so big. But, and we'll talk about it when we talk about endocrine, but the word I hear from the medical community is our thyroid gland just takes, it seems like antibodies kind of land on it. And so it's loaded with antibodies that are going through our bloodstream. And of course, antibodies then make things look funny. And so all it has to do is do an image, and we've got atypical cells, and everybody's scared. And I had, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be, I don't know, except I had a friend, a neighbor, who had atypical cells, or they felt barely a node, which is probably the cells the antibodies attacking. But the physician told me that it's just a haven, a target for antibodies, and for whatever reason. And she talked to Massachusetts General, Rochester, Minnesota, everybody, and they advised her to just leave it alone. They said, autopsies all have nodes, little tiny, not much to it. It was all right to take it out, but you're going to be on Synthroid for life. But she just couldn't do it because they were atypical, and she did have it taken out. And of course, everybody's willing to take them out. But it's just an interesting thing. So it may be why it's so prescribed is to have an abnormal thyroid is not an uncommon thing. So, and if you want it out, then you've got to be on Synthroid. But you do see kind of where Americans are. We've got, that one's kind of out, but the cholesterol drug, and then our GI system and our breathing. Blood pressure, diabetes, kind of hits them all. I'm a little surprised on Lantus, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The top selling prescription drugs are Abilify. Doesn't that advertised on TV all the time? Antipsychotic. Nexium again. And for arthritis, Humira. Cristor again for cholesterol. And there's your discus and your arthritis, Enbrel. I don't see that a lot, but apparently somebody's. Remicade, arthritis, Zymbalta again, muscular sclerosis, copazone, and Neulasta. Now, Neulasta doesn't surprise me. I'm surprised it's number 10. It makes white blood cells for cancer patients who have been on chemo. So now, just keep that. I mean, it's just a brush up, and it probably rings bells with you, and that's a good thing. Go to the next page, number 13. And those are the 10 biggest selling prescription drugs. Just another, this is from another source, based on total dollars spent. And you've got the Lipitor, we've got cholesterol again, and then they put Plavix there. Let's see, blood thinner Plavix with the blood thinner, lagging far behind in second place in lifetime sales. Isn't that interesting? Plavix for anticoagulation. And then Nexium again. There's Plavix. And the Advair discus, Abilify. Singulair for asthma, allergies and asthma. Crestor, we're into the fat, aren't we? Actose for diabetes. And then Epigen. Epigen, you know, builds red cells for anemia. So these two papers kind of tell you what they are for, but it's a good brush up, I think. Go to number 14, and MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Look at the bottom, and you see those drugs. You know, it's just we've had a time where we use too many antibiotics, and our body's gotten resistant. So with methicillin resistant, they will use vancomycin, Targacid, Zyvox, and Zithromax. Those are the 4 they use if somebody has MRSA because they're resistant to to the methicillin. And then ointments, Bactroban, Ultrabac. Now, Bactroban is over the counter, but it's very diluted. And I talked to a pediatrician this week. Well, I'm just going to tell you, I nurse in the summer for 2 weeks at a camp on Lookout Mountain, and I've done it for 33 years, I think it is. And there's a doctor, a nurse, and a couple of nurses, and this doctor. So for the week, the doctor is with us on the front porch or wherever. So it's my time to pick brain. And I saw we had children with a lot of bites, and then they scratch them, and then they get infected, and then you know what happens in Vertigo. And so I saw, and I've always treated, and I talked to him about it, Bactroban as your last resort. Get them washing those bug bites with soap and water. Let's don't use Bactroban first. And, well, I noticed he got out some Bactroban we had hidden and was using it just on everything. And I said, David, teach me, because you're using it more profusely than I think it should be used. And I told him, he said, no, you're right. You're exactly right. It's just at camp, the director wants them cured. And he said, when they go home, they'll be fine, but I need to deal with it now. So just keep in mind, if you are prescribed the powerful Bactroban, use it for what it's meant for, and then put it at the top of the medicine cabinet in the back, and only pull it out when something begins to look like it might be staph. or staff. Um, and how do I know? The worst thing of all is that it pops up someplace else. You have this awful bite that has gotten infected. I'm taking care of it, but tomorrow I notice one here, and there wasn't a bite there yesterday. Then I know it's gotten systemic. And he still, the pediatrician, still believes in go on and put Bactroban cream. He tries to hold off any kind of another antibiotic as long as he can until it really starts popping up. Then you've got to go a true systemic. But he still believes hold up on Bactroban for the most part, so you don't come resistant on the one good one that we've got.
Would you use just maybe one you can get over the counter?
Okay, and
A triple antibiotic for a child, maybe.
Kara, is that it?
Carla.
Carla. You just opened up
A can of worms.
You can believe anything I say or nothing I say. I have nursed for 50 years, and so I've seen a lot. I don't believe in Neosporin and all those. I think they're just glorified Vaseline. And I just don't think there's anything to them. I think they have a big 30-gallon vat, and they put a little in there, and I got by with calling and Neosporin. I think Vaseline can do the same thing. You've got a sore, and I don't want it dust. I'm going to be out in the dust and dirt and fishing or whatever. I can put Vaseline, and the stuff isn't going to get in it any different than Neosporin. And you know, it's just making a mint, those little envelopes, and everybody feels so great that they put Neosporin on. That I talked to the pediatrician about that too, and he said probably I'm right. Now I love Vaseline, not for medicinals particularly, but it keeps out the germs. And I don't think Neosporin does much more. And you've paid a lot more for it. Now that's personal, but it answered your question, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Or at least my opinion. All right, and then go to page 15. And those are ones in skilled care facilities. Just again, no memory work or anything, but it's interesting what nursing homes are, what are their drugs they're using so much of? And are you already kind of excited you know some of these drugs? It's kind of fun. You don't feel as retarded as you thought you were. Because you're not, I promise. I've always said you're so much more with us than you think you are usually. Okay, Lasix, of course we know, is a diuretic. Been around so long, and they love it. It's cheap, and I think it's a wonderful diuretic. It is potassium diluting, so you do have to make sure people get some potassium. Zoloft, no question about that. Lisinopril, it's an ACE inhibitor, treated for blood pressure, heart failure. I think this is as good a time as any, and we're going to come across lisinopril again, and we'll just say, remember lisinopril. But I wish you'd write either here or later. Lisinopril is a wonderful, cheap cardiac drug, so a lot of people are on it. But the craziest thing about it is that you can be on it for 5 years or 10. And one morning you wake up and your face is swollen or your lips are swollen. Well, you know it isn't any drug because you hadn't changed drugs in 5 years. Oh yes, if you're on lisinopril, it's probably lisinopril. Whatever crazy reason, you can be on it for a long period of time, it does great, and then your body reacts, and you do need to get off of it or take Benadryl and get off of it. So, and it's usually facial first, which is interesting.
It's just edema, facial edema, no nerve damage.
No, right, no damage at all. But it's just horrible. I mean, out there. And I've had people call me and say, do you have any idea? And the fact it's right there, you don't think it's systemic. You know, that's the thing that's crazy. But it has to be. What's been touching your face, not laundry soap. So it's just an interesting drug, but I always tell people, be so aware if your neighbor says, I'm allergic to something. Are you on my separate? And a lot of people are. Aricept is for, and how good is it? Oh, well, nothing's great yet for dementia and Alzheimer, but people tell me they think there's a little something with Aricept, so we won't diss it at this point. Seroquel, antipsychotic, Ativan, isn't it sad a little bit, these nursing home drugs, because I'm just kind of squelching their pen, because I don't have enough help, so I'm just pushing them down. Coumadin, anticoagulant, old but good. I say old but good. Old, good, but and probably better than the new ones, Plavix and some of those, but because some of the new ones don't have an antidote, and this does. Let's see, it's aquamaphytin, or what is the? Yeah, vitamin K. And but you have to have your blood checked every 6 weeks, and you don't with the new ones. Protonics is GI, of course, and I asked a physician, there's so many of them out there for GERD and stuff. I said, if you could give just one, what would be your favorite? He said, absolutely no favorite. They all are doing the same thing. So there's, to him, no favorite. Remeron, we've already seen it, but antidepressant. And then, of course, Synthroid. But that gives you a flavor of our skilled care facilities.
It's sad that 3 of them are antidepressants.
Yes, yes. Oh, it's just heartbreaking. All right, number 16, page 16. Now, if they have the little line beside them, they're the ones we're going to look at real quickly, of course. Now, that's not the only drugs, but they're the most popular in our part of the country. Some of the others may be in other, and it's not that they're never used, but acyclovir or Zovirax is antiviral. And see, if you break up the word, A is without, cycle of a virus. Because we know you can't kill a virus. Nothing kills a virus. But acyclovir will break the cycle of the living virus, kind of detonates interferes with its growth or its cycle, and that's why we can kind of arrest it. We don't kill it, but we can arrest it. So keep that in mind. Herpes, any virus, they may use acyclovir. Amoxicillin, old and well thought of, an antibiotic. Ampicillin, a well thought of old antibiotic. Zithromax, and that's the one we do in stages, 8 today, 5 tomorrow on. And it's well thought of and does a good job. Go on down to Keflax, which is, PO, but antibiotic. And Cipro. They're good. Cleocin or Cleomycin, they're all antibiotics. Doxycycline, and I want to say, and I think I am going to say it, that doxycycline there's something to remember with it. Let me see. I'm going to look at page 16 of your briefs. It's ringing a bell that there's something we need to remember about that. Not that pharmacy would probably send it to you with a notice, but let me see what, if I've written anything, the doxycycline. Yeah.
Photosensitive.
It's Vermizon photosensitive.
Yeah. Take it with water.
Make sure you take with a full glass of water. Now, PO, it probably comes in a shaded medicine thing, but the IV has to have a bag over it.
Mhm.
So, now, let's continue with erythromycin. And you know, erythromycin, a lot of people are allergic to erythromycin, but it's a good drug if people can take it. And then diflucan, we know is mostly fungal. That ending ZOLE tips you off. It's fungal. And go on down to Flagyl, which ZOLE. It is for fungal, but they use these a lot of times as where you might think an antibiotic's used as well. Penicillin, potassium, tetracycline, and of course you remember on that one, and it's always written, usually the pharmacy alerts you, no milk products if it's in your stomach. Now give it 4 hours to get out of your stomach, you can take milk products. So if it's morning, noon, and night, after 4 hours, take it. Just don't do milk products within 4 hours or whenever. Bactrim and Septra, they're used for MRSA, that methicillin-resistant staphylococcus. Cleocin or clindamycin for MRSA. And Valtrex breaks that cycle of the virus as well, for a virus. See, you can see vir on the end of the word. Of those small print ones, Levaquin is used a lot. Just underline it or whatever. Levaquin. And Vefin, the second from the last one. And Zyvox. You see that, Yvonne?
How new is Beefin? I've never heard of that one.
Vefin and Zyvox. 5, maybe less than 5. 3, maybe. Mm-hmm. Now, the arthritis and pain relief drugs, of course, acetaminophen and codeine, Tylenol with codeine, and you know the numbers. Tylenol number 3 is high codeine. Number 1 is 15 milligrams, I think, then 30, and then 60. The number 1, 2, and 3, Tylenol, number 1, 2, and 3, is how much codeine. Allopurinol, or Zyaprim, decreases uric acid, which they think uric acid collects in your joints, and so you get gout or arthritis. The interesting thing about allopurinol is the floor I use is oncology, and allopurinol is not a oncological drug, but the patients will get it. So you want to wonder why. You don't want to just give it willy-nilly. You like to think, why is a patient getting is their uric acid high? Well, not particularly. So why are they getting it? Well, uric acid is the waste of protein. And so if somebody eats a lot of foods that make a lot of protein foods, too much protein gives a lot of waste out. And that's your uric acid is one of the waste products. Well, if you are on a cancer floor and they're giving you chemo, then chemo kills the cancer cells. Cells are protein. So now your bloodstream has all this torn up cancer protein. So if you get Xyloprin, it tries to get that out. Isn't that wonderful? So it's getting rid of the waste product of protein. And on an oncology floor where you're getting chemo, there's a lot of waste of protein if the cells are being broken down. So it's an interesting drug. And while we're on it, we might as well talk about high uric acid, because we will when we talk about lab work. But for whatever reason, that waste of uric acid loves the joints, particularly the big toe and the earlobe. And those are your classic diagnostic end of the line, isn't it? The ear and the toe. And if that pain is a diagnostic for gout. And you know, I know a man that grills every night, and it's great. I mean, it's muscle, but he's getting protein, but he's getting way too much, and the body can only handle so much. And so he has terrible gout, and it's attributed to his steaks every night. Okay, fiorinol. Fiorinol, you see, has aspirin and caffeine in it. It's a nice painkiller.
I was gonna say, does that treat migraines?
Do what?
Migraines.
Yeah. Oh, is it good for migraines?
Stress headaches.
Oh, really? Uh-huh. Okay, y'all add that. Lodine is good for pain. And Duragesic patches. Just keep in mind the skin's our biggest organ. It's hard for me to believe we absorb so much through it. And I'm getting more used to that idea. You can probably tell dry skin. I'm trying not to lather with so much oils because apparently our skins absorb so much into the bloodstream. So the patches work because it absorbs. Lortab or Vicodin, they have hydrocodone and acetaminophen, Tylenol. Ibuprofen, Motrin. And just keep in mind, ibuprofen, okay, can you keep that and go to briefs? Just keep it open, don't close it. Go to briefs, page 16. And I want page 15. And you know, see, this is a review course. A lot of this you already know, but it just reviews you. On page 15, at the A's, antipyretic, analgesic, and anti-inflammatory properties. You see the drugs that do all of them, and just
Wait, we're confused.
in here, page 15, the briefs.
Okay, briefs 15, we see labs.
16,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I thought it was 15.
Oh,
16.
Yeah.
And you see the big blank for Tylenol's missing for anti-inflammatory. And I want you to keep that and try to educate the public. They think, take a Tylenol. Did you take a Tylenol? Yeah, with my big swollen ankle. Yeah, sure. It'll cut the pain, but it doesn't do a thing for the inflammation, and help the public know that. Well, then you can retort to me, well, don't you think the reason is, well, for instance, aspirin. I love aspirin. I mean, I don't take them very often, rarely, but it's gotten such a bad deal. It's a wonderful drug, but people, children, and what is it, Ray's disease?
Yes.
Yeah. So I talked to the pediatrician at camp about that, not this year, another year. And that one said, after 12 years of age, there's no such thing as rise. And I said, isn't it, and I think, but if I were a pediatrician, I would probably never tell a child to take aspirin. With the research that is, I gave all mine aspirin because I did it prudently. Now, if you're going to give them for every little stumped toe and like M&Ms, then it isn't a good thing. It is the most wonderful. Mummies, they find mummies in Egypt that had salicylic acid. It's been a drug of choice for hundreds and centuries, and it's so wonderful. But it's gotten a horrible reputation, and I think because the drug companies don't make any money on it. You buy, what, 50 for $1 or something?
Yeah.
They don't make any money on it, so they badmouth it. Tell you it causes bleeding, which it can, of course. And you know, anticoagulation throughout the body and all that. But it is a wonderful drug. And actually, I heard a lecture that said 2 aspirin, and you know, they're $3.25 each. The lecturer said is equivalent to 50 in analgesic properties, equivalent to 50 milligrams of Demerol. If you hadn't used it, and
I never heard that.
Mhm.
That sounds like
it's a great analgesic, unless you've gotten so immune to it, and that's what people so often have done. Well, now people are so scared of it that I alone about all that uses it. No, but anyway, notice that all of them, all of them are except Tylenol, and it's the one that. But now you have to also remember, should have put anticoagulation there too, and I didn't. They all have except Tylenol. That's right. So you might keep that in mind too. So you have to be prudent. That's the biggest thing. Careful. Use some sense about it. Okay, you can put the briefs down a minute. Let's continue. So we got to ibuprofen. I think we beat that to death. Methotrexate. And it's a lot of times used with oncology patients, but mostly for arthritis. Morphine or MS Contin. And then go on to page 17. Oxycodone, pain. And oxycodone with acetaminophen, Percocet. And see, I think we forget, I don't care, but again, you've got a hurting ankle, just know your Percocet is not helping the inflammation, it's helping the pain. Fildine was popular for a while as an analgesic, but I don't see it given much. And then off the market is Darvocet N. Is that right? Did y'all know that?
Yeah.
Why was it taken off the market? Anybody know?
What?
Why was?
Supposed it caused some sort of heart problem.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm.
It was the Darvon compound. On the inside of it, it had a little tablet inside it.
Uh-huh.
And it caused something, but I cannot remember
It
what.
may have been cardiac
It was
issues.
something about the Darvon compound, 65.
Well,
Well, anyway, it was a capsule, and it had a powder in it, but it had a little round dot inside of it.
Huh.
We never did really know what that was.
Wow.
So I don't know if that.
Something, and I wouldn't doubt, but you think cardiac issues maybe. Uh-huh. And then on the little print, Celebrac, real still popular.
Celebrate.
Mhm.
It didn't do nothing for my job.
Did it not? You didn't think it was very good. And you know, that's what's so interesting. A drug that does you good, a lot of times doesn't do anybody else. We've already mentioned Humira. None of the others are used very much in this area. Let's go on one more and then just break a minute. Blood modifying drugs. Trental is used for anticoagulation. And of course, Coumadin we've mentioned. Lovenox, the little letters, and Plavix. Now we've got more, and we're going to come to some more. Eloquil. Oh no. Come on. Oh, we'll get it. It's in another part. Eliquist. That's it. Eliquist. There's another one too. There's several out there. They're all about the same. The trouble is, so many of them don't. I hate to say all don't have a antidote. I know they brag that Coumadin, yeah, it's a hassle, but it has an antidote.
One of the anticoagulants, you can't eat broccoli. I forget which one.
Well, I think, honey, there's
Yeah,
several
There's
that.
something in it counteracts the.
Oh, really? You know, I tell
Any dark green, yeah, you cannot supposed to eat with Coumadin, period.
yeah, you're
I
right.
mean,
Now, I have something I need to say about that. Huh? Well, I'm just gonna say, and again, my opinion. I read all that, and no green vegetables with this and that, and the idea is that it enhances the drug, its potential. It doesn't make it non-existent. And I just think you'd have to do a whole lot of that green vegetable to really do anything. So I don't believe in it. I saw a woman from church at Whole Foods, and she said, this diet, he can't have any green vegetable. I said, let it go. Let it go. She was fretting and carrying on, and he probably would do better without her fussing and all that.
They could even decrease his dose.
Huh?
They could even decrease his dose.
That's right. So take it for what it's worth. You've got to think yourself. I mean, at church this morning, they were talking about how things have changed and all. And I was telling them in our profession, so many things have changed that used to be the Bible and aren't now. And all of you could probably come up with some. I even thought of the one where babies, when I was in nursing school, you never let a baby be on their back. Woo! Regurgitation, Oh, you'd get counted off for it. But when I had my babies and I put them on their stomach, the umbilicus hurt. They screamed, and I thought, I wouldn't want a sore, laying on a sore either. So I flipped them over, and in a few years, they said, don't ever put babies on their stomach again. Not for that reason.
Yeah.
They just have their reasons. So many things have changed. Something you all said made me think of something that was big. I mean, we may think of some things that were really gospel at one time and aren't now. I may think of it in a minute. Now, let's see. So we finished the blood modifying. Mm-hmm. Now we'll start diabetes. If you need to break, just stir 1 minute. There's a bathroom. Go to the hall down. So left, 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 and when you're in the great big section, there's a staff bathroom to the right. Do that. Are you hungry? Go down. There's first floor's vending machines.
Do you mind if you use?
No, fine.
Are we gonna get CPR certified?
No, you don't, and you don't need it to be, are you,
No,
active?
you don't, no, I'm not active.
Okay,
License or
no,
anything.
you don't need it to be active, well, this course is it, for
Okay.
being active. But I hadn't even looked into getting into CEUs, but, because the course does get you, after 5 years. I'd say in 4 years though, Connie, after this course, you need to be CEUing.
Okay. Oh, really?
Or,
I figured it was every year.
I don't think it is. I think what I've been told by state board, if you haven't earned money for nursing in 5 years, you need to refresh. So, now we're gonna break.